I realize that with a 97% tomato meter rating and a 90% audience score, being someone who didn't like the new Ninja Turtles movie puts me in the minority. But I don't mind being the odd man out here when I say that Mutant Mayhem was not a good movie. Now, am I just saying that because I'm an old school Turtles fanboy that reminisces about the 90s live action movies every time a new Turtles movie comes out and uses them as an unattainable standard by which all new Turtles movies are measured against and invariably found wanting? Yeah, of course I am. But I can still tell a good movie from a bad movie, and Mutant Mayhem was a bad movie. Now, this review will have spoilers in it, so if you haven't seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem and you don't want anything spoiled, then stop watching in 3, 2... Okay, timeout. Sorry to pause the episode. I'm working on it right now, and I realize that at no point did I ever touch on what prompted me to make this video. And one of the primary reasons was there was a lot of comments and information I was reading online that was saying stuff like, oh, if you enjoyed the 1987 series, then you'll love the new movie. If you like the 90s live action movies, then Mutant Mayhem is going to be right up your alley. And at this point, I can only guess that that was some sort of propaganda or marketing from the production company. It didn't come from anyone I knew. It was just stuff out on the interwebs. And there's nothing in this movie that reminds me or makes me feel nostalgic or reminiscent of the 90s live action movies or the 87 cartoon series. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's you can call it a reason 0 out of my 4 reasons. This is the prompting reason that made me want to make this video. So let's continue. Number 1, a big part of this movie's plot was ripped off from the 2014 Michael Bay Ninja Turtles live action movie, where some shadowy organization kidnaps the turtles and steals their blood in order to make some kind of MacGuffin chemical. Then the Turtles have to escape the shadowy organization and stop some doomsday what's-it device that will do very bad, not good, terrible things to New York, or the world, or the universe, or whatever. At this point, you can insert your own relevant world-ending event here. I'm not sure why the climax of so many movies has to hinge on the end of humanity. Seems like a tired old trope, but the writers of Mutant Mayhem jump on that bandwagon like they're sporting banjos. Finally, they disable, dismantle, and otherwise destroy said Destructomatic, only to come face to face with a very powerful enemy or end boss who easily defeats the Turtles initially and seems like there's no hope that they could ever possibly defeat him. But then, of course, the Turtles regroup and are able to defeat the villain suddenly because, brotherly love or whatever. Number 2, there are too many mutants, so the movie ends up being less Mutant Mayhem and more mutant meh. They take all the cool, varied backstories of the different mutants, throw all that stuff out the window, and say, oh, hey, instead of having unique backstories for each character, let's just say that Baxter Stockman, who was sad because he didn't have a family or whatever, boo-hoo, wah, just created all of the mutants. They would have done better to have used far fewer mutants so they could develop the story on each one. Or, better yet, get rid of all of that stuff and just throw in some robot foot soldiers and mousers so the Turtles could ninja them up real good without being too violent as they slog their way to Shredder for a final battle. The Turtles, Splinter, and Shredder have a final showdown where Shredder is defeated but escapes, of course. Then you can wrap it up with a really cool end credit scene with 2 massive mechanical doors opening up, Shredder limping in, and out of the shadowy recesses of a vast room you hear, Shredder! Number 3. All 4 turtles in this movie are just one big indescribable mass devoid of any character. Instead of 4 unique personalities, we just get your annoying 15-year-old nephew to the 4th power. One of the beautiful aspects of the Turtles was their varied personalities, which allowed them to be endearing to everybody because almost everybody could find something they could relate to in one of the Turtles. The original 87 cartoon stated it best. Leonardo leads, Donatello does machines, Raphael is cool but shrewd, and Michelangelo is a party dude. It's a little reductive, I'll grant you that, but it gave you the gist. Hey, Editor Chad again. Sorry for the interruption, but apparently there is a piece of Turtles history that I have been wrong about for years. And in the name of transparency, I wanted to share what I found out with you. In the section we were just watching where I was listing off the summarized attributes of the 4 turtles from the cartoon intro song, I said Raphael was cool but shrewd, which is what I always thought it was, because Raphael was a cool guy, kind of like Michelangelo, but he was shrewd in the fact that he was kind of a no-nonsense, tell-it-like-it-is sort of guy. But after doing some post-production research, it turns out that the lyrics are either cool but crude or cool but rude. I couldn't find 100% consensus on it, but it looks like it's more cool but crude, probably, and that's what it sounds like in the song. So let's take a listen and see if you can tell.
Raphael is cool but rude. Give me a break. Raphael is cool but rude. Give me a break. Raphael is cool but rude. Give me a break. Raphael is cool but rude. Give me a break. Raphael is cool but rude. Give me a break.
I don't know if you're with me on this one, but I think it's cool but crude. I threw some suggestions in there, and I'm pretty sure it's crude. And that would make sense, because crude, not in the sense of like poop and fart jokes, but crude in the sense of that he might not be as refined about getting his point out, and he's still kind of a lay it on the line, tell it like it is sort of guy. So for what it's worth, I wanted to point that out. I'm sure someone would have mentioned it in the comments, and they probably still will, but you live and you learn. So let's get back to the video. It gave you something to build from, regardless of whether or not you were writing a cartoon, a comic book, or a movie. Mutant Mayhem doesn't use any of that. All of the turtles are essentially the same, the slight exception being Raph, although I don't know if being a psychopath is exactly a personality trait. Number 4. Instead of 4 stoic protectors of the citizens of New York dedicated to keeping the people safe despite the fact that they will not be accepted by the surface world, we get 4 mopey sad sacks who just want to belong or go to school or have girlfriends or something. I can appreciate that they're trying to make them more teenagery or relatable, but I don't think most people want that in a Turtles movie. You don't need to give them similar problems that other people have in order to make them relatable. You can relate to a character that has similar concerns, worries, and problems. That's true. But you can also relate to a character because they hold an ideal you aspire to, like bravery or determination. These turtles whimper and complain about not being a part of society or the upper world, and that was never what the Turtles were about. Splinter, the real Splinter, not the Mutant Mayhem Splinter that just ends up being a fat old dad who's afraid of humans because reasons. Splinter raised the turtles knowing they couldn't be a part of the human world, but that they should still dedicate themselves to protecting the people and upholding justice, not because of what they got out of it, but because they were committed to something bigger than themselves. The turtles strove for higher ideals. The Mutant Mayhem ending was that they got to be like everybody else and go to school and have buddies or something. And that's lackluster at best, or a travesty to what the turtles stand for at worst. And setting all that aside, which takes considerable effort, it glosses over this vast gaping plot hole of where the government was. Now that they know that mutants exist and the kind of horrifying damage they can cause, the government never shows up and tries to apprehend any of the turtles. I mean, by the end of Mutant Mayhem, there's a whole horde of mutants living together in one convenient location that are not exactly being subtle about it. Any agency could just roll up, grab them, take them to Area 51, and subject them to a myriad of tests and hypotheticals before finally breaking them down to their component parts and experimenting on and poking and prodding everything further. This makes especially little sense when you consider that all you need to do to find the turtles at the end of Mutant Mayhem is wander into any random PTA meeting, practically. They're not hiding, they're in homeroom. And it bears mentioning, although I'm not going to even get started on the absurdity of the idea that all of the people of New York, or even a majority of them, would just be accepting of the Ninja Turtles now. Or that parents in a post-COVID world would be totally fine with mutated reptiles mingling with their children. And I realize you need a heaping helping of suspension of disbelief in order to tell a story about mutated turtles that are masters of ninjutsu. But in order for SOD to work, you need to have it grounded in a little bit of logic and reason, and Mutant Mayhem isn't having any of that. Also, suggesting that the turtles are just accepted by everyone and become a part of human society strips them of a lot of their appeal, I think. Also, it flies in the face of all this ninja training they've been doing that is to melt into the shadows and be the hidden protectors. I think it robs the viewer of that special connection they have with the character. When there's a character that has done the right thing but is still shunned and despised by everybody else, I think you can have a deeper connection with that character, and sometimes you feel like you're the only one that understands that character, which makes the bond all that much more powerful. That's why I think the end of Mutant Mayhem, where they just have them join society in general, diminishes the turtles. Anyone would fight for a friend or a loved one, but it takes someone far more noble to fight for a stranger or even someone that hates you. And I think that's why the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have stood the test of time all these years. But anyway, I know that's a pretty deep review for an animated Ninja Turtles movie, and there's still a lot I could say about this, but that's my abbreviated review of Mutant Mayhem. I'd love to know what you thought of the movie if you saw it. Let me know down below. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. I've got a lot more notes on this, so I could expand if you want to hear me ramble on about what I didn't like about Mutant Mayhem, but in the meantime, be excellent to each other, and cowabunga, dudes!